England first thing on Sunday, and those will slowly push their way more towards southeastern regions as we head throughout the day. So again, the odd sharp shower can't be ruled out, but if you manage to dodge those, there'll still be plenty of sunshine in amongst all of that, and feeling pleasantly warm where you see that sunshine. Highs around 24, 25 degrees Celsius in places, and with lighter winds tomorrow as well, that will help it feel most noticeably warmer for some of us. Into the evening, those showers across the southeast will tend to die down. We'll still have those outbreaks of rain still lingering across some northern regions, but generally we're starting to see that trend towards something slightly more settled. I know there's the chance of some further rain in the northwest at times into the start of the new week. Generally it's the sunny spells that will persist for many of us, and temperatures around, if not holding up above average for the time of year. Bye-bye.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, everybody. This is the Saturday 5. I'm, of course, Alex Armstrong. We're going to be bringing you a very different show for the first hour of this evening at 6 o'clock. But we're going to be starting off with some huge breaking news to bring you at bang on 6 p.m. And I'll be passing now directly over to GB News national reporter Charlie Peters with the full story. The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has ordered a full-scale national inquiry into the grooming gang scandal. Announcing it on his way to Canada, the Prime Minister has made a dramatic reversal with his government's position at the start of this year and will now accept
the prime recommendation of Baroness Casey from her review, her national audit, ordered by the government earlier this year. Now, crucially, the Prime Minister said that the inquiry will be statutory, which will mean that it will have powers to compel witnesses to give evidence and are independent of government. The inquiry will be similar in terms of powers to compel witnesses to the ongoing inquiry into the Post Office Horizon scandal, which has seen executives and ministers grilled in front of TV cameras. Many of the cases in this grooming gang scandal involve Pakistani heritage men raping white children, predominantly girls. Concerns about the grooming gang scandal have been highlighted repeatedly by GB News since we were founded 4 years ago today. Now, this inquiry will, according to reports, examine the issue of perpetrators' race and allegations of a cover-up by authorities who were not keen to inflame racial tensions. Now, Sir Keir Starmer has made this announcement while speaking to political journalists en route to the G7 meeting of world leaders in Canada. Mr. Starmer said that he had asked Casey's position when she started the audit in January was that there was not a real need for a national inquiry over and above what was going on. The Prime Minister said she has looked at the material and she has come to the view that there should be a national inquiry on the basis of what she has seen. He said, "I have read every single word of her report and I am going to accept her recommendation. That is the right thing to do on the basis of what she has put in her audit." Now, the Prime Minister also said that I asked her to do that job to double-check on this. She has done that job for me, and having read her report, I respect her in any event. The Prime Minister said, I shall now implement her recommendations. Now, Sir Keir Starmer said that the national inquiry would be statutory under the Inquiries Act. That will take a bit of time to sort out exactly how that works, and we will set that out in an orderly way. Now, Mr. Starmer's announcement has come after GB News revealed in 2023 that over 50 different towns and cities have been affected by this national scandal. Now, this channel has repeatedly championed survivors' voices, the voices of victims, their families and the campaigners who have promoted their cause for many years. And Alex, I'm just going to go back to the start of this scandal. Now, reports of this sort of abuse occurred in the northwest of England from the 1960s and 1970s. But it wasn't until the 2000s when the Labour MP Anne Cryer, who was the MP for Keighley, raised concerns about schoolgirls being targeted outside school gates, that there was a first national reckoning with this issue. Now, that Labour MP was attacked by her own party and government. She was derided as a racist, and the story fell silent. It was revived by a reporter at the Times called Andrew Norfolk, who was investigating crimes that were raised to him in the South Yorkshire town of Rotherham. His reporting led to an independent government-led and authorised inquiry, which was announced by Rotherham Metropolitan Borough Council and was returned in 2014. That report by Professor Alexis Jay, a social worker, found that over 1,400 children had been abused in the town by these predominantly Pakistani gangs from 1997 to 2013. Now, that report sent shockwaves around the country and indeed around the world. And then another key voice was asked to come forward and make a report. Baroness Louise Casey, in 2015, filed a report into Rotherham Council, finding that the cover-up there was endemic. The entire council leadership had to resign. In the coming years, there were more reports. The Greater Manchester Mayor, Andy Burnham, launched a reassurance review in the Greater Manchester Combined Authority area, first looking at Rochdale and also at Oldham. He launched those reports after a whistleblower called Maggie Oliver from Greater Manchester Police, who had resigned as a detective constable to make some allegations and reports, came forward with shocking reviews. Now, those reports also found a similar pattern of abuse that was found in Rotherham. They have already published. And we also then had similar reports in Telford, in West Mercia. Now, the Telford Review, published in 2022, found that thousands of children had been abused in that town for several decades. At the same time, Professor Alexis Jay, who did the original Rotherham report, then put forward her investigation in the independent inquiry to child sexual abuse. That also returned in 2022. But many survivors and campaigners said that that review and that investigation did not look at the grooming gang scandal properly. It was over 500 pages long, but it mentioned Rotherham just once. In the grooming gang section of that report was a subsection of a sub-report on organised networks. It looked at 6 areas, including Warwickshire and St Helens. None of those areas had an investigation or a crime type of a pattern that we had seen in Rotherham, in Telford, in Rochdale and in Oldham. So many thought that that investigation was insufficient for looking at the grooming gang scandal. Since then, GBNews and many other outlets have been investigating this scandal. And as I said, we found over 50 different towns and cities affected by this abuse for the last 30 years. In analysis shared by this broadcaster last month, we found that there had been 400 successful prosecutions since 2000. But we also found that there had been just 1 deportation since 2011. We also found that there were widespread trafficking and organised crime networks stretching all the way from Plymouth to Glasgow. Now, since Baroness Louise Casey had her review launched in January, this channel has found consistent evidence of a nationwide cover-up. We have found new allegations from Oldham, new allegations from Telford. We have spoken to a retired police detective inspector from Bradford, who found that he was threatened with arrest when he raised concerns about abuse in that West Yorkshire town. This scandal has not gone away, and Sir Keir Starmer's announcement today is a dramatic reversal of his position since January. You'll remember that when pressure erupted on this issue, it was because GBNews revealed that the government had rejected a request from Oldham Council for a government-led independent inquiry. They felt that the previous independent report was not enough. The inquiry that was requested was rejected, and when we revealed that, it sparked widespread public outrage. Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, shared our reporting and also shared some extremely sharp and negative commentary of the government, commentary that has been disparaged widely across all sides of the political divide. But it did start a national conversation. It led to Sir Keir Starmer announcing that they would have 5 local inquiries. The government said that local inquiries were enough, that in Telford it made situations work, in Telford there was justice, and in Telford things had changed. But since then there has been more pressure, as I've said. In April, months on after they announced those local inquiries, the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper and the Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips made an update to that announcement. The Conservatives said that that announcement in January had been watered down because the locally led inquiries were now going to be locally led work. They said that still 5 inquiries would happen, but they couldn't say where they would be. Now, since then, the Home Office has consistently told GBNews that there will be at least 5 inquiries. We don't know if that is still the position, but we do know now there will be a judge-led national inquiry into the grooming gang scandal being led with statutory powers.
Charlie, thank you so much for that extremely detailed report there on the crisis so far. I'd like to ask you a little bit about what this means for victims up and down the country. Of course, we also saw some of those J report recommendations recently, as much as last month, I think it was, that some of those recommendations were actually put to one side, including compensation for victims if there were to be any justice, at least. What does this mean? Will this change some of that narrative going forward?
Well, we'll see what happens next. This is a moment of severe political reaction, to be frank. I mean, speaking to survivors in the last half hour since this news was brought to us under embargo, they have been astonished to have this reaction, Alex. People are really just blown away by this announcement because you'll remember, Alex, that in January, when Sir Keir Starmer was being questioned by MPs and also being questioned by journalists in the NHS at that hospital in Epsom in Surrey, he said that people calling for a national inquiry were engaging and jumping on the bandwagon of the far right. But over the weekend, we have seen a really sudden change in stance on this. Last night, we saw the MP for Rochdale, Paul Waugh, Labour MP. He came out in favour of a national inquiry. He previously said he was open to it. Now he said we needed it. And that's because details of Baroness Casey's rapid audit, which was announced in January and was meant to take 3 months, it's now middle of June, but details were first leaked over the weekend saying that there were linked illegal immigration and this sort of abuse. And also we learnt this morning that she was concerned directly linking the ethnicity of perpetrators, that they were predominantly Pakistani, with the victims being white girls, that ethnicity was an issue. And I think, Alex, there was nervousness in Downing Street. We heard about them worried about civil unrest, but I think more importantly, there was political worry. On Wednesday, in the week coming, there was going to be an amendment to the Police and Crime Bill put forward by the Conservatives, who were going to force another vote on that national inquiry into a grooming gang scandal. They tried that in January, and the Labour whip said you can't vote on that because it was termed a wrecking amendment to the Education Bill. So a few MPs, even those on the Labour benches who backed a national inquiry, didn't vote for it. However, since we've had this announcement from Baroness Lewis Casey coming through the papers over the weekend, I think we're going to see more people now reacting to it. The government, I think, they did not want to have the Conservatives voting for a national inquiry after the whole country knew that Baroness Casey was going to say we need a national inquiry. So they've had to take the momentum on this.
Yeah, this is going to look like egg on the face of Keir Starmer here. This is a second big U-turn, if you include the winter fuel allowance as one of those big U-turns at least, in a very short period of time. How much trouble are Labour in with all these U-turns? And you're going to see Kemi Badenoch go out and celebrate victory. You'll have the likes of Rupert Lowe, of course, has his own private grooming gang inquiry starting as well. Is this going to look like a government completely out of touch with reality?
Here's a problem for Labour, Alex. They've said consistently that a national inquiry isn't what's needed. They've said they want to do action, not yet more inquiries. But here we have the Prime Minister going for another inquiry. He's always said that we don't need one because we've already had the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse. But I think what his party and his government are now reckoning with, based on this report that we've not yet seen from Baroness Casey, is that the ICSA report wasn't enough. But Alex, I want to bring in a guest, someone I'm very, very happy to speak to now, and that's Elizabeth. She's a survivor from Rotherham. Now, she'll be joining us without being in shots because she still lives in some degree of uncertainty and fear, I would say, because she's yet to achieve full justice for all that she endured. But Elizabeth does have some successful prosecutions against some of the men who abused her as a child in that South Yorkshire town. Elizabeth, I've spoken to you countless times about this issue over the years. You were a part of the documentary that we broadcast 2 years ago on this issue that kick-started such a strong reaction to this issue in politics at the time. How do you feel there is going to now be this national inquiry that you've wanted for, well, decades?
Yeah, I'm quite speechless, to be honest. I weren't expecting it at all. You know, it has come as a shock.
I'm sure it has. But Elizabeth, when we've spoken in the past, you've always said that this isn't just a Rotherham issue where you're from. People were trafficked all around the country. I mean, we've worked together looking into a period that you endured where you were trafficked from Rotherham all the way down to Bristol. You and I have worked together on a piece about missing files relating to that investigation. Do you think now, with all the evidence we've got about this being a nationwide issue, we're showing the map now of the 50 different towns and cities that GBNews produced 2 years ago. Do you think now there will be a chance, finally, to look at this on a national scale, as has always been required for this nationwide crisis?
Absolutely. It should have been done a long time ago, you know. We've sat and we've waited. We've never seen it what it is, which is organised crime. Maybe we've got a chance now of seeing proper justice, you know, and that's thanks to people that's campaigned, to Baroness Casey, you know, for telling the truth, and that truth's going to come out, you know.
Yeah, and Elizabeth, it's about putting this forward as an organised crime perspective, isn't it? For too long, I think people have looked at this issue and they've looked at it as sort of localised abuse in various different towns across the country, various sort of gangs operating in an isolated manner. But that's not the case, is it? This is a national issue with so many drug crime groups or sex crime groups working together and facilitating this sort of appalling exploitation all around the country, and we just don't know how many victims there are.
Absolutely. I don't think we know the true figure of how many victims there actually is, for a long, long time, just in my case, I've been waiting 24 years for this to come out because they were too busy labelling victims as the wrong ones. We've had it up to a certain point. We still see it today, where attitudes towards victims is absolutely diabolical.
Elizabeth, I'm just hearing from our political editor, Christopher Hope, who's travelling with the Prime Minister now. He said that it's understood that this new national inquiry will coordinate with the other local inquiries which are already underway. So we will still get those localised inquiries that they announced in January. Elizabeth, what's your message to the Prime Minister tonight? He said in January that people calling for a national inquiry were jumping on a far-right bandwagon. Elizabeth, what's your message to Sir Keir Starmer?
My message to the Prime Minister is, for months and months and months, he's sat and literally let us beg for our justice. The only reason that he's doing this is because Baroness Casey has come out and told the truth. We're not far-right. We were just children. What was abused? It was never our fault. And for months and months, he's put that blame on us still and didn't want to recognise the actual extent of what we've been through.
Well, Elizabeth, it's always an absolute honour to speak with you. Thank you so much for coming on GB News. I'm sure we'll catch up later. And congratulations. You've been campaigning on this for decades and you've got it. Well, I'm going to speak to someone else now, also from Rotherham, because I'm very happy to say that I'm joined now by a Grooming Gang's campaigner, the whistleblower from Rotherham, Jane Senior. Jane, welcome to GB News. You also were a central part of that documentary 2 years ago, Grooming Gangs, Britain's Shame. Now, I think you are probably the most important person in this story because you were the whistleblower that exposed this scandal in Rotherham in 2010 to 2012. What's your reaction to this news tonight?
I think it's a bit bittersweet, Charlie. I'm so glad that it's happened and I'm so angry that we've had to wait so long and you know, what victims, survivors, parents, whistleblowers have had to endure over a lot of years, but especially over the last 12 months, being vilified, called far-right, being called racist, just because we want answers and we just need that why. Why did this happen? And more importantly, why was nothing done about it? Why did those that had the power, the resources to actually do something, stop it, change it, did nothing? And as we sit here today, nobody in a high professional position has ever been held to account. And, I'm hoping that this inquiry actually goes far enough that we actually look at that as well.
Jane, I spoke to you this morning when Baroness Casey, some of her report was being leaked into the press. You told me, I love that woman. She's done us all right. Now, tell us what it was like in 2015 or when Baroness Casey was preparing to publish her report into Rotherham. You must be thinking, when she was brought into this rapid audit, I'm going to get the same strong investigator that I had a decade ago to expose the rot in your town.
Absolutely. And as soon as they announced that Baroness Casey were looking at this, and I just thought, we just need to just sit back for a little bit now because she will do the right thing. And when Baroness Casey came into Rotherham, what she did is she absolutely left no stone unturned. She went, as deep as she needed to. She examined thousands of records. She spoke to victims, survivors, parents. I remember taking so many people to actually speak to her and to listen to some harrowing stories. And she did right by Rotherham. She shone a light, a very bright light into some very dark things that were happening and things that were being, in a way, covered up. I'm going to use that. It's a strong word, but I'm going to use it.
It is a strong word, it's a strong term, but it's absolutely correct, isn't it? Because we've known about this issue across the country for so long. Now, in 2023, you and I spoke about this, obviously, extensively. We thought we might have a breakthrough, because we had this issue with our reporting leading to the government launching a grooming gangs task force, the CSC task force. That made over 1,000 arrests in 2 years. It put this issue back on the map with the then Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, making that announcement. But at the time, actually, we were disappointed, weren't we? Because despite that announcement, this issue disappeared very quickly from the news headlines. This hasn't happened this time, has it? It's stuck around since January. Why do you think that is? And do you have confidence in this new announcement of a judge-led inquiry?
I think it's stuck around because what we've had is a lot of survivors that have had enough, a lot of parents that have had enough, professionals, whistleblowers, you know, and I think I've been kind of working in this area and safeguarding for maybe going on 30 years, and to actually be told that I'm far right for raising this issue kind of made me again think, do you know what, we've got to keep going, we've got to keep arguing, fighting. So I think if the inquiry comes with teeth and it comes with some criminal legislation at the back of it, then I think, you know, at long last we may get some answers and kind of be able to not just move forward and look at what happened in the past, but significantly make a change for children now and our next generation of children. We'll never stop this happening, but if we can significantly reduce it, then we've done the right thing.
Jay Senior, in my opinion, the hero of Rotherham, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We'll be speaking to you later as well, I'm sure. Now, you've heard there, panel, from Elizabeth, that brave survivor from Rotherham, and Jane Senior, the whistleblower who helped to expose the scandal. They're both, you can tell, surprised by this announcement, but very keen for this to go the way it needs to go. Alex, both that survivor and that campaigner, they think that now is the chance to finally have that full national inquiry to finally expose the extent of the rot of this crisis in this country.
Well, it's absolutely necessary, and many of us here on this panel have called for it weekend after weekend. Of course, Charlie, just to read out some of the comments here, by the way, they're absolute huge praise for the work that you have done throughout your career, not just here at GBNews, but throughout your career, Charlie. Something that's being asked quite a lot here is, of course, there was lots of accusations of a cover-up. Even Jess Phillips went on to say that in the House of Commons. Do we know if this, we believe it's statutory, this inquiry will have the powers to investigate areas where people believe there may have been corruption or a cover-up?
Well, for me, that's always been the key point. And if what we're hearing from the Prime Minister is true, and I have no doubt to think otherwise, it will be statutory and it will be judge-led, which means it will have the same powers to compel witnesses as other statutory inquiries, like we've had with the Post Office scandal, for example. But what's really key here, Alex, is we've had judge-led inquiries in the past that just haven't really followed the scent. They've not compelled the right people to come forward. They've not asked the right questions. The terms of reference have been sometimes too broad, sometimes too narrow. Now, in January, when this popped up again, a lot of people started to realise that that independent inquiry into child sexual abuse, it did a lot. It covered so many issues. It spoke to over 7,000 people. But only one of them, only one core participant, was a grooming gang survivor. And it was described at the time, this was during the coronavirus, so not many people actually gave evidence in person when they were looking at the grooming gang issue. It was described as a shameless avoidance of the issue. And the chief counsel to the inquiry, when they started the section Organised Networks looking at grooming gangs, they actually said that it wasn't part of their review. They weren't going to look at that issue in full. So, Alex, what's going to have to happen now is that people will need to really pay attention to terms of reference of this inquiry, who it speaks to, where it goes, to make sure that it asks the right questions of the right people. Because that ICSA review, that term independent, it's a good thing. We didn't want it to be interfered with by politics, but it also meant that a lot of people just let it work in the background without properly, rigorously assessing what it was doing. Perhaps if we'd done that 7 or 8 years ago, we wouldn't need to be doing this again now.
Well, I'm grateful that you're going to be on the case, Charlie, because I know nothing will get past you, but I'd like to bring in the panel here as well, of course. Dr. Renee is itching to go.
Itching to ask you a question, Charlie. And on those terms of references, do you think they'll look at what's actually going on now rather than just having historic glasses on? Because we know there's evidence that this continues as we sit here.
Yeah, well, I think we'll have to wait to see what Baroness Casey's audit says, because I've been led to believe that the work she's done in the last 6 months is speaking to people that have been introduced to her through campaigners, the work of journalists to get an understanding of the situation, because what's really concerning is there's a limited amount of information from local councils and police forces. They actually often don't collect this information. One of the big problems we had during ICSA, for example, was that when they were asking local authorities about this, in particular South Wales, they said, we have no issue of grooming gangs in South Wales. Just an hour ago, I was speaking to a survivor from South Wales who was trafficked to Telford, Hereford and beyond, all the way up to Bradford as well. So if I know there's an issue in South Wales, why don't the police there? And that's a really key issue. It's about making sure that this is an opportunity for ongoing investigations to be properly assessed. We can't improve the present investigations if we don't learn from the mistakes of the past, though, and there have definitely been a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, quite right, Charlie. Kai Wilshaw would like to ask a question to you as well.
Absolutely, and thanks so much, Charlie, for all this dogged reporting, frankly. I'm loath to agree with Kemi Badenoch, but actually what she said recently is that Keir Starmer's put process over justice, legal caution over moral clarity. Do you agree with that? Do you think that actually this government, maybe in hindsight, were trying to do the right thing but got tumbled up in their own business and actually should have just made a decision?
Well, Kemi Badenoch said this morning that Sir Keir Starmer should be a leader, not a lawyer, and it's a line she's often used against him. I think, unfortunately, for a lot of survivors, that's sort of language that they'll share as well. But at the same time, they won't trust the Conservatives because the Rotherham report came out in 2014 and they launched this independent inquiry by Alexis Jay and then sort of let this work on in the background. The Conservatives are very loud about this now, in part because I think everyone's shoved a load of information in their faces to make them realise how widespread this crisis is. But I do think there is something to that criticism of this government. Do they finally get this? Have they been delaying this for so long? I think after Sir Keir Starmer made that far-right comment in January, it became very politically difficult for him to then say, well, hang on, if there are 50 different towns that GBNews has found, perhaps I do need to do something on this. But you can't say it's far-right and then do it 1 week later. Yeah. By getting Baroness Casey to do that rapid audit, I think he was generating a political opportunity for him to do what he thought was possibly necessary at the time. Because if Baroness Casey comes back, if Louise Casey comes back and says, this is a nationwide issue, we've done the review, thanks for asking me to do that, now get on with it. We have to say, Sir Keir Starmer is the only Prime Minister who's launched a grooming gangs inquiry, a nationwide inquiry. There's plenty of Prime Ministers who've known about how bad this is, who didn't want to go there. You know, 2 years ago, when we revealed our report and showed how widespread this was, Suella Braverman made that intervention, but Rishi Sunak didn't back up her language. He was very nervous about going further. I thought there could have been an opportunity there for an inquiry. Perhaps Rishi Sunak put a process over doing the right thing at that time as well. But if that is the accusation we're making of Sir Keir Starmer, today it seems as though the process has worked out because we do now have for the first time a judge-led inquiry.
And it does seem as if what the Casey report will bring out, they've been looking at the scale of this issue, which will hopefully look at all the different towns in the UK where this has been taking place, but also the societal and cultural drivers for this scandal, ethnicity, allegations of a cover-up, and a link between undocumented immigrants and instances of grooming gangs taking place. So do you think actually this is going to be quite a comprehensive initial view into what the inquiry needs to be looking at?
Our society has never reckoned with the drivers behind this crime. It's been too difficult to discuss this issue properly. People have avoided the fact that the perpetrators in many of these gangs, in many of these towns, are overwhelmingly from Pakistani heritage backgrounds, and that the people they're targeting are young white girls, often starting the abuse when they're just 10 or 11. We've spoken to countless survivors who were targeted at that age specifically. Now, any review of this needs to do what academia and the police and councils and government has failed to do for decades. There needs to be a very rigorous process of asking those questions. What is it about that disparity that creates this sort of abuse? There are questions that need to be asked, I think, possibly the most importantly, about cousin marriage and this abuse, about kinship between groups. Why do we find that so many of these abuses are related? Why do they protect one another? Is there possibly a link between cousin marriage and the protection of abusers from their relatives who work in positions of authority? I think that's going to be the next big expose in this scandal. is that it wasn't just people fearing this because of racism and being accused of being racist and they were terrified and walked away, although that is an issue. I think it's worse than that. I think this is, in many cases, active corruption. That police officers and local officials weren't just looking the other way because they were terrified of being called racist. They were looking away because they wanted to. Perhaps they were getting something from it. Perhaps they were receiving drug money from the organised gangs involved in this. Perhaps they were family members with those involved. Those are the sorts of questions that need to be asked. What are the cultural, ethnic, religious, social causes and factors and drivers behind that? I really hope, if there is an inquiry of that scale, it asks those questions. And it doesn't have to take years. You can ask that quite quickly.
Charlie, lots of people getting in touch here. Many people saying that they just do not trust Labour and Keir Starmer on this issue, given the amount of the rhetoric they've been using over the course of the last year or so. But I'd like to bring in Trey and then Will afterwards, if that's OK. Trey.
So, Charlie, the thing that I want to speak about, and we can all agree, is absolutely heinous what's happened to these young girls. Do you think there's a danger where the sort of spotlight moves away from justice for these girls and more focused about the ethnicity of the perpetrators?
Well, I think they're connected, right? I think that's been a cause of great frustration, that people have been so nervous about that spotlight being moved away that they've forgotten what the spotlight was there for in the first place. We can't separate the factors. We can have two spotlights, if you don't mind. We can look at both those factors at once because they do interlink. They are very much overlapping. Now, I'll take Alex's point as well, though, because I think it's a really important point you raise about people not trusting Labour perhaps on this. Some of the strongest voices on the grooming gangs issue are Labour politicians. They are in a minority, perhaps. Many of them are scared about doing this. Sarah Champion in 2018, she was kicked off the front bench. This is the MP for Rotherham, because she had the temerity and the guts to say, this is an issue with Pakistani men targeting young white girls in my constituency and around the country. We've got to reckon with this. Now, she was punished for that, but there are plenty of Conservative MPs, Lib Dems, past and present, who did not use that language because they were terrified. Sarah Champion, for me, is far braver than most Conservative MPs, and so is Dan Carden, the MP in Liverpool, who is member of this Blue Labour faction. We've also heard from Maurice Glasman, a Labour peer, who's been very bold. He doesn't want just a judge-led inquiry, he wants that inquiry to have powers of arrest. Now, find me a Tory MP who's been saying that for the last few years. I know a Labour peer who will. There are loads of other Labour MPs who've been very strong in this. We've heard Paul Waugh in Rochdale. He's a brand new MP, but he really believes in this as well. The concern, Alex, I think, and I think a lot of our viewers and listeners will share this, is does the party machine get it? These are outspoken voices. But I think now, possibly, with all this momentum, with those voices, let's be frank, winning now for the first time, their leader is agreeing with what they've been calling for years, that might change.
Yeah, Will.
Yeah, Charlie, I want to hone in on the fact that this will be a judge-led inquiry, and that word independent that keeps coming up. Because in one respect, people will be happy to hear that this is one step removed from politics. But at the same time, GBNews viewers, and I think many people at this panel, will say that we've lost faith in the judiciary as well. You look at Lucy Connolly, you look at all the silly refugee cases that we've seen pop up across the judiciary. How can we be sure that there isn't the same level of ideological capture that will lead to the same compromised points of view that we have seen from so many politicians?
Yeah, and even in some of the reviews we've had by lawyers, and Tom Crowther, the barrister who did the Telford review, did an amazing job in Telford. He got loads of survivors to come forward, but part of his report said that it was understandable that people were worried about political correctness and were nervous about it because that was the prevailing orthodoxy. Now, I happen to think it wasn't understandable. I think that was a very bad thing to do in Telford, to fail to do this because you were worried about being called racist. So I think that is a very key point. And to that, if I had the opportunity to set this inquiry in some way, right, which I don't, I would have a foreign judge lead it, or an Australian, or someone from New Zealand, or Canada, someone in the Commonwealth who isn't maybe affected by the curiosities of British politics, who hasn't been besmirched by the years of agitation and denial and cover-up on this issue for so long. Unfortunately, I think we need someone to come in from abroad and deal with this.
Yeah. OK, Charlie. Renee, would you like to ask another question?
I just wanted to ask, Charlie, do you think there will be social workers, teachers, policemen, politicians sitting at home tonight scared?
I think there will be. Yeah, there will be. Absolutely. There will be, I think, thousands of people who will be terrified about this coming forward because they may be called forward to give evidence and they may be asked to speak ill of others, if not themselves. But it's long overdue.
We've seen social workers, haven't we, describe 10-year-olds as prostitutes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That was the conviction of 7 men in Minchell Street, Crown Court, yesterday in Manchester. But that's not an isolated issue. That's happened right across the country. But for every social worker, police officer or politician who's nervous, there will be dozens more survivors who are elated by the prospect. I just want to bring in another guest if I can. Let's speak to the father of Scarlett West, a survivor from the Tameside area of Greater Manchester. It's Marlon West. Marlon West, it's so great to speak to you this evening. You've been campaigning for a national inquiry into the grooming gang scandal for many years. What's your reaction to Sir Keir Starmer's announcement this evening?
So, for me, I really welcome it. However, I've possibly got more questions than answers at this point. I know it's breaking news. One is, I don't want the Prime Minister to take credit for this. He refused to meet me, and I've tried to work with Labour. This is not working against them. This is working with them. And for him to start taking credit now, which he possibly will do, I think will be offensive towards campaigners like myself and survivors. We all know why he's done it, and it's because of the Casey report. And he's pressurised, and he doesn't want a rebellion within his party and lose the lead. That said, I do welcome it.
Marlon, because, as you know, this is an issue right across the country. Now, you're in the Greater Manchester area where there has been a local inquiry. Now, we know that the government have told us this evening that they will be working with those local inquiries to include this national inquiry, so they'll feed into a wider picture. Now, what's your experience been of those local inquiries in Greater Manchester? What's your reaction to that involvement? Does that make sense to you, or do you think they should just go for national only?
National only. So Andy Burnham, he did the Operation Span. He's still going. OK, he didn't have statutory powers, but Greater Manchester Police refused to engage in that. They refused to share information. Police officers refused to even be interviewed. So, no, let's start from scratch. I don't want to hear the word ICSA again, because that's what I've constantly had thrown at me. Let's start from new.
Marlon, we revealed last year that the 2 men who were leading the Greater Manchester review, the next stage, part 4 of the local inquiry there, were denied access to some evidence by Greater Manchester Police, and they resigned because of that. So if these local inquiries don't have the powers, where these people who are leading the inquiries need to get the information to produce their reports, how can the local inquiries work? Now, the government will say, by contrast, that in Telford, the local inquiry led to real change. What's been your reaction to their defence of the local inquiries?
Appalling. You've just said it yourself. They've got no statutory powers. So why would they use an inquiry when police officers have refused to give evidence on other professionals? It's just a no-brainer.
And Marlon, just reflecting on your experience, I mean, you've been enduring this horrific scenario for many, many years now. Your daughter is enormously brave in what's been achieved so far, but there's so much more to be done. Do you now have renewed faith that you might get some justice for your daughter and the many thousands of children across the country who've been in similarly awful scenarios?
Well, as I said, I welcome it. At this moment in time, I don't trust the Labour government with the experiences I've had with very much closed doors. And one of the big questions that does interest me, so my daughter Scarlett, I've been on GBNews before. She was raped by over 60 Muslim men. She was trafficked, Birmingham, Bradford came up a lot, and no prosecution has ever happened. So my question is, with this public inquiry, are they just going to look at historic prosecutions? What about all these girls who have never had a prosecution? Because as far as I'm concerned, it was cover-ups by the police forces and by local authority. One of the things that I'm involved with at the moment is a project called the National Archive. We're trying to bring in as many survivors that have not had prosecutions. So we've got an archive and a list.
Yeah, and plenty more voices, you hope, will now come forward will say to this judge-led inquiry, once it is set up, I've got something to tell you. There's something that's happened to me. Do you have confidence that more people will do that? That this moment, because the Prime Minister is now in favour of investigating this with a judge-led inquiry, do you think that that political intervention could give confidence to more survivors, or have their families and the women and girls who've faced this around the country, do you think they've totally lost faith in politics after years of this being an issue?
I think a lot of them have lost faith. I think it needs to be very, very clear what kind of questions they're asking, who's involved, to reassure the public for them to come forward.
Marlon, I just want to go back to January, if you don't mind. Let's hear what the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, said when she made this first announcement in the House of Commons.
It will also provide stronger national backing for local inquiries where they are needed to get truth and justice for victims and survivors. Effective local inquiries can delve into far more local detail and deliver more locally relevant answers.
Locally relevant answers. The government has said that we don't need a national inquiry because these local reviews make a difference. Why have they now gone against that message for many, many months and launched that national inquiry? Do you think that Baroness Casey has taught them a lesson in her findings?
I believe so. I don't know Louise Casey personally. I believe she's a first character and she's moral. So obviously from her findings, she's not going to back down on it.
Marlon,
and she's not getting paid either.
And Marlon, let's also go back to April, when the Safeguarding Minister, Jess Phillip, who's been a core part of this discussion, she also made an announcement after the original announcement from Yvette Cooper.
We'll set out the process through which local authorities can access the £5 million national fund to support locally led work on grooming gangs. Following feedback from local authorities, the fund will adopt a flexible approach to support both full independent local inquiries and more bespoke work.
Notice the change there, Marlon, of course. In January, the Home Secretary said locally led inquiries, but in April, Jess Phillip said locally led work following feedback from local authorities. And this is the real concern, isn't it, Marlon, that local authorities, as part of these inquiries, will say, we don't want that, no thank you. Many of them, indeed, may have Labour leadership, and that could delay proper investigation. Do you have confidence, then, that this judge-led inquiry being set up by a Labour government will force those local authorities to make those proper investigations and inquiries, or do you think they will resist after local feedback?
I think if it's got statutory powers, and I'm hopeful, and I have to have hope, I've been working with this so long, that they will have to come forward and they'll have to be investigated. You know, my council is Tameside Council, where Scarlett was groomed. The director of Children's Services won't even meet with me. Nobody will speak to me. But don't get me wrong, I don't think this is any different across the country. Tameside are not anything special. So hopefully that will happen.
Marlon, just before we leave you, please tell me what your reaction was when you saw that news at 6. How did it feel? Because I know exactly what you think, and I've heard you say it so many times, and I've always been very grateful for you to come out and share it. But how did that feel when you saw that news pop up on your phone?
Mixed feelings. I felt, I guess, elated, relieved, and then I guess I became somewhat hypervigilant, and I started thinking, because I don't trust Labour, and I just think, oh, what's your game here? Where are you going with this?
Marlon, thank you so much. Very grateful for your time this evening, and we'll stay in touch.
Thing before
Please,
we go.
Go on.
Charlie, thank you so much for your support with this campaign. You've been brilliant, and I'd also like to thank Kemi's team as well. They've been really supportive. Thank you.
It's been an honour to share your voice and your concerns. Marlon, thank you so much for coming on the programme this evening. Well, I want to speak to another voice, another brave voice that I've known for years as well, who has been key as part of the investigation into the grooming gang scandal. It's Alan Collins, who's a lawyer who represents victims of sexual abuse. He's also been calling for a national inquiry into the grooming gang scandal for a very long time and was a lawyer for the ICSA review before it was published as well, representing clients who were part of that. Alan, thank you very much for coming on GB News this evening. What's your reaction to Sir Keir Starmer launching that judge-led inquiry?
A relief, because it was absolutely necessary and it just seemed to me that the inevitable was being postponed. So I'm very relieved for everybody. I'm relieved in particular for these victims and survivors.
And Alan, this has been now 6 months of political turmoil for the government. It's been a core part of our national conversation since this re-erupted in January. Did it feel like to you that this was inevitable, that they were always going to announce it? It was just being delayed for political reasons?
Well, it was very difficult to understand why it just seemed that the inevitable was being postponed all the time, and one can be cynical about it. But this has been a problem for many years, where those in positions of leadership have, in my opinion, and others may disagree, have ducked some very important and key issues and questions. And so at some sunlight is going to be shone into these very dark and complex issues.
Through what it's going to be like now, representing these survivors, what's going to be the process for coming forward for this judge-led inquiry? What will that involve and what sort of support will you provide? Because I'm sure you'll be supporting people in this as well.
Indeed. Going back to ICSA, which you mentioned a few moments ago, that had a very difficult start because the chairs sort of came and went and so on. And so it's going to be very important that there is survivor buy-in right from the very start, because the survivors are going to be central to all of this. For a national inquiry to be effective and for it to be able to deliver, it's going to need the unflinching support of victims and survivors. And so from the very, very start, there needs to be engagement with them. Otherwise, you're not going to get the evidence that's going to be needed. And I think
Alan,
we know that.
Yes, absolutely. And Alan, what's the process going to be like for ensuring that victims, survivors, their families and all those who've been supporting them over the years trust this inquiry? How is that achieved? And what can politicians do to make sure that happens? I know it's a very difficult question because for many survivors that you and I have spoken to, they just don't trust any politicians. No, what's your feeling now about how that can be achieved?
Yeah. It's going to have to be a very open process, very open. So whoever ends up chairing this national inquiry has got to be very open, in my opinion, and this is based on experience with the survivors. Because if there is any suggestion that that there isn't this openness and that political influence is being brought to bear or anything like that, then the survivors, I suspect, would back away, and that would be, disastrous. So I think the key message is the whole process needs to be open, and the politicians who are going to be creating this, the government, have got to be very open and frank and need to let this national inquiry get on with the job and to refrain from commenting too much, refrain from trying to second guess outcomes and so on. So I think the politicians are just going to have to back off, let the inquiry get on with it, and where necessary, give evidence. Because a lot of politicians know a lot about what's been going on over recent years.
OK, Alan Collins, partner at Hugh James Law Firm, thank you very much for joining us this evening and good luck with the work. I'm sure that's about to come your way. Well, Alex, there you've heard it. You've heard from Marlon West, the father of a survivor who's been campaigning for so long for this, and a lawyer. Completely different background, but both with the same concerns. Politicians can't be trusted on this issue. This is a significant announcement, but the proof is now going to be in the detail that comes forward. And also, I think there's a really key point at the end there from Alan. How do we ensure that survivors and their families trust this inquiry? It's going to be less about political involvement, according to Alan, and more about them just seeing the detail and coming forward on their own terms, as is right, as has to happen.
Yes, and it's going to be about that transparency, isn't it? For the victims and actually the general public who want to know the detail. What is going to be the next steps of this national inquiry? A question I've got for you, Charlie, is, a big reason as to why the government said they didn't want to do one in the first place was that it would take too long. Do we have any indication, or do you have any indication whatsoever how long that this national inquiry might take, given the epic proportions of this grooming gang crisis?
Well, when Michael Gove was a minister, he ordered a review, an inquiry into children's homes in Rochdale. It returned an answer in 3 months. I don't think it's going to be this quick, and it really shouldn't be. But it should be time limited, I think, if I can just share my opinion, if you don't mind. I think it should be time limited. It should be, I think, 18 months to 2 years max. Any longer than that, and it risks delaying and losing focus and momentum. I've said before, I think it should have a foreign judge to come in and approach this unflinchingly. But that 2 years, I think, would provide the right amount of time for people to come forward, but also prevent this from being kicked into the long grass and being delayed by different politicians so they don't have to answer for its findings. Another key point, I think, on the timing is that it also gives enough time for the right lawyers to set up, get involved, and for survivors to come forward and finally share their stories on this issue. Yes,
it seems to me that there will be a lot of politicians out there today that will want this inquiry to happen quite far down the line, which will be a very interesting next step. I'd like to bring my panel back in. Kai, would you like to ask a question to Charlie off the back of anything you've just heard from the victims, survivors, anything else?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I just want to pick up on something that Trey was getting at, I think, earlier in his question, which is, this is long overdue. But I think many people in Pakistani communities across Britain will be worried that this could translate into civil unrest that is quite unfair to some of those people in some of those communities. What do you think, and you talked about trust a bit, what do you think the Prime Minister needs to do in terms of setting the tone of this inquiry?
I'll take the first point, actually, about civil unrest and engaging with Pakistani communities. We ran some polling at GBNews in January when this debate about a national inquiry came forward. Now, the vast majority of all people wanted an inquiry, but so did all ethnic minority Britons, so did British Pakistanis. In fact, ethnic minority Britons favoured the death penalty for groomers and their supporters far more than white Britons. I think you'll find a lot of support from British Pakistanis to get rid of this because it is a localised issue within gangs and families that support one another. But there are very many British Pakistanis who are appalled by this, who want to come forward and share information. And we spoke to many of them as part of the GBNews investigation in 2023. People who came to us, we did seek out some key voices, but many people approached us saying, we want to tell you about the situation in our town. And that was vital to our investigation. I will say very quickly on the concern about unrest. You grow a monster with public anger when you don't do anything.
Yeah, with all due respect, Kai, that question reflects the mentality that's infuriated so many people for so long, that the problems that we have seen in these communities for decades and decades, the first instinct is somehow Islamophobia, or the first instinct is somehow, well, what about the Pakistani communities? Do we think there is a risk here, Charlie, that we're going to get more people saying, instead of thinking about the victims, instead of thinking about how do we solve these systemic problems, how do we, worry about Islamophobia first? Is that going to be the instinctive response of the Labour?
Will, you can do both.
There is one which is much more important than the other here, Kai, and that is the problem we've had in this country for too long.
I agree, you can prioritise.
No one cares about Islamophobia now.
But also worry about violence against minority communities in this country. You can worry about both.
I think you will reduce the risk of violence, and you will promote the eagerness to deal with this issue by talking about it openly and having proper inquiry.
And not shutting
just my view.
Down.
Yes. Charlie, on behalf of all of our members and the audience watching, we just want to thank you, because there's a lot of comments there saying thank you so much, Charlie. Everyone is exceptionally proud of the work that you've done. I know this has been practically your life's work, if I might be so brave to say that.
Well, I'm still quite young, but...
so far. This is quite a huge moment in British politics. There's this call for a national inquiry has been going on for a very, very long time. Of course, we've had the opposition, the Conservatives calling for it, Reform, Rupert Lowe, now an independent MP, setting up his own private inquiry. There's a lot to get into, and I suspect the fallout from this is going to ripple across the week and maybe far, far further than this, as we, of course, hear the results of Baroness Casey's initial report as well. I think this is going to put some serious egg on senior cabinet members others' faces over the coming days. We will be, of course, here at GB News, and Charlie Peters, the man himself, will be keeping you abreast of all of the details as they emerge. So don't forget to stay tuned to GB News throughout the week on that. And of course, there's lots more coming up on the Saturday 5. We'll be keeping with this breaking news. And of course, you'll hear from all of our star panel here, Will Kingston, Dr. Renee Trelo and Kai Wilshaw. Charlie will also be back to talk to you all more about this. We will see you very shortly after the break.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. After a thundery start to the weekend, the second half offers something a little bit calmer for us all. It is still quite a damp, dreary evening to come, particularly for areas of Scotland. Some areas of rain still persisting, but generally come midnight they will be turning lighter and patchier in nature. Elsewhere there will be some clear spells as well, a touch of hill and coastal fog in places, but it's not going to be too chilly by any means. Temperatures comfortably in double-digit figures for many of us as we start off Sunday morning. Some of that rain still will be lingering across the Northern Isles first thing tomorrow morning, and we are also going to see another area of rain just slip its way into the northwest of Scotland, particularly for the Outer Hebrides and later on into the Highlands, parts of Argyll and Bute, that will also arrive into Northern Ireland later on in the morning. So a little damp here, but certainly the rain will be lighter and less intense than what we've seen around today. Some sunny spells developing across England and Wales, but there will be a scattering of showers wanting to pop up across central regions, and those will slowly push their way towards the southeast as we head into the afternoon. So can't rule out the odd shower here, but generally a nice slice of sunshine developing for areas in between. And with lighter winds as well tomorrow, it will be feeling relatively pleasant where you do see that sunshine. Highs a little down compared to the temperatures we've seen today, but still a very comfortable 22 to 24 degrees Celsius. Generally around high teens for Scotland and Northern Ireland. As we head into the new week, we're watching as this area of high pressure wants to build its way in from the south. Slow progress though, so it's still allowing these weather fronts to just skirt across the far north, and so there will be some further outbreaks of mainly light rain again for areas of Scotland, and then a bit of a brisk breeze here. But for the rest of the UK, with that high pressure beginning to influence us, there will be a good amount of sunny spells arriving once again, and temperatures not faring too badly. It's the sunshine that will become increasingly lengthy as we head into the rest of this week, and temperatures continuing to climb mid to high 20s for some of us. Bye-bye.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£54,321 cash could be yours. Cash that you could spend however you like. It's like having an extra £1,000 each week for a whole year to play with. Someone is guaranteed to win this amazing amount of cash, so make sure that someone could be you. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Good evening. It's coming up to 7 p.m. and this is the Saturday 5. Joining me tonight are Trey Lowe, Dr. Renee Honderkamp, Will Kingston and Kai Wilshaw. This is the Saturday 5. We're kicking off the show tonight with that breaking news on the grooming gang U-turn. I'm going to pass you straight over to Charlie Peters.
Now, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has dramatically broken with his own position that dominated the first 6 months of this year. He has called now for a judge-led inquiry into the grooming gang scandal. In January, Sir Keir Starmer said that people were jumping on a far-right bandwagon by calling for a national inquiry. But tonight, he has ordered that himself. He has said that he's accepted the central recommendation of Baroness Casey's review, a rapid audit that the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, ordered in January. That has now been returned to the government. It's expected to be released next week, but before it's come out and before we could have been facing a vote on an inquiry put forward by the Tories on Wednesday, Sir Keir Starmer has ordered a judge-led inquiry across the grooming gang scandal all over the nation.
Thank you so much, Charlie. Huge story tonight, but of course we're going to get into far more detail on this across the next hour. But first, it's your news with Stephanie Elsey.
Hello, I'm Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB Newsroom at 7:01. The Prime Minister has ordered a national statutory inquiry into grooming gangs after a major review reportedly found white British girls were ignored for fear of racism. Sir Keir Starmer says he accepts the recommendation from Baroness Casey, who was asked to carry out a national audit by the government earlier this year. Her report, due next week, is expected to link the scandal to men of Pakistani origin. The Prime Minister has previously warned a new inquiry could delay justice for victims, but tonight he said it's the right thing to do on the basis of this review. RAF fighter jets have been deployed to the Middle East to provide contingency support across the region following intense fire between Iran and Israel. Iran launched waves of ballistic missiles at Israel in retaliation for Friday's strikes, which hit nuclear sites and killed 6 scientists and senior commanders. Israeli officials say 3 people have been killed, while Iranian state media reports at least 60 dead in Tehran. Iran is now warning it will target UK, US and French bases in the region if they step in to defend Israel. A manhunt is underway in the US state of Minnesota after a politician and her husband were shot and killed in their home in what authorities are calling a politically motivated attack. The state governor confirmed that State Representative Melissa Holtman and her husband were killed during the shooting in the city of Minneapolis. Another politician and his wife were also shot, but they are being treated. The suspect was reportedly posing as a police officer and escaped after an exchange of gunfire. US President Donald Trump called the violence horrific and said it will not be tolerated. And to Northern Ireland, police have used water cannons to push back rioters in Portadown as violent unrest continues across the country. Officers were attacked with bricks, fireworks and petrol bombs in County Armagh on Friday night, the 5th consecutive night of disorder. At least 63 officers have been injured so far. It follows a protest earlier this week in Ballymena over an alleged sexual assault, which has since spread to several other towns. Police say some of the violence is now being coordinated, possibly involving loyalist paramilitary groups. 17 people have been arrested and 13 of them charged. You're up to date. For you, I'll have more at 8 p.m.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back. It's Saturday night, of course, with the Saturday 5 here, and we're going to talk straight away to Charlie Peters about this huge news on the grooming gang scandal U-turn. Charlie, what have you got for us?
It's absolutely extraordinary, really, isn't it? To think that in January, the Prime Minister said that people calling for a national inquiry into the grooming gang scandal were jumping on a far-right bandwagon. Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the opposition, she made that demand for a national inquiry after we revealed that the government had rejected a request from Oldham Council for a government-led inquiry. Now, the Conservatives, Reform UK as well, and many other political campaigners of all parties and none were calling for a national inquiry. But at the time, the Labour government said it wasn't necessary. They said that we needed action, not further investigation. They also said that the Conservatives had failed to pass the recommendations of the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse. Well, since January, they said they've committed to making all of those recommendations and also putting forward 5 local inquiries. But who knows what will happen next? Because the Keir Starmer, his Labour Party, have announced that judge-led national inquiry. I'm very happy to say now that we're joined by another great set of guests who have lived this story. It's Ellie Reynolds, survivor of the abuse gangs from Barrow, and her father, Ian Piper. Thank you so much both for joining me this evening. Ellie, especially to you, because you're a mother, and I believe you've had a child just 2 days ago, but you're so keen to come and speak to us about this. But even as you're recovering from childbirth, you want to react to this extraordinary news, which has been the story of your life. So, Ellie, please, thank you so much, but also just tell us, what's your reaction to Sir Keir Starmer's announcement this evening?
I personally believe that he was left no choice. I think that with the awareness that's been raised and the amount it's been in the media, to keep his position of power, he's kind of got to go with it now. But I am so happy that there is a national inquiry. All I can really say on it is I would not be surprised now if a lot of people were anxiety riddled. A lot of things will start coming out about the corruption. I think a lot of balls will start rolling now, which is a good thing, especially for the people that have had to have lived through it.
And Ellie, it's amazing to speak to you and see you smiling about discussions about justice, discussions about people in authority being nervous or anxious, as you put it, because usually when we've discussed this together, you said so many people in positions of authority knew, they covered it up, and they got away with it. Do you think there'll be people in your story who'll be nervous about this? And I'm sorry to ask, but and I know that this is a moment of reflection as well and positivity, but could you also share your story with our viewers and listeners?
Yeah, I strongly believe that in my case and in my story, there will be a lot of positions of power that are nervous. I believe that I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of them were no longer in a position of power by the time it got to an investigation. I was a victim of child sexual exploitation and multiple gang rape from the ages of 13 till 17. I went through absolute hell. Children's services knew about it. The police knew about it. They categorised me as risk for child sexual exploitation. But in their words, they failed to act for unknown reason. So, I strongly believe that a lot of people will be full of anxiety.
It's great to still see you smiling throughout that answer as well. And I want to speak to your father, Ian, now, please. Ian, can I take first and foremost your reaction to this news this evening, please?
I was shocked that he's announced it, but the next thing that went off in my head was what you're playing. You know what you're playing at, mate. For half a year, you've said no to it. So why has it took, the likes of yourself and your fantastic work, Maggie Oliver's fantastic work, people like Ellie and the other inspirational girls that me and my wife have had the privilege to meet when we met Baroness Casey. And it's took for her to come out with it now. But to me, is it because he's got no control of his government that he's backed into a corner and he's got no option but to do it? But like Ellie said, people should now be held to accountability. And for me, all these girls and these lads, these survivors that have been criminalised from the minute they open their mouths, something needs, people need to be able to account for that.
And Ellie, that's part of your story as well, isn't it? Children who were targeted by gangs being criminalised by the CPS. We often talk about the police and the social services failures, but this goes to the prosecution service as well. They made critical errors in many cases over many decades by targeting children rather than the perpetrators.
Yeah, I strongly believe that the reason that they target the children is because the children are already in a vulnerable state. It's pretty easy for them to pin the blame onto somebody that's suffering enough rather than tackle the actual problem. Like you say, it doesn't just stick at the police and children's services. There's a lot more authorities and services that are meant to be there to help that have never helped, that hopefully now they are held accountable.
Now, Ellie, we don't know when this judge-led inquiry will start up. We know it's got a lot of a process to go through, a lot of work to be done to select the right person to lead it. But tell me, are you looking forward to having your opportunity to give evidence to this inquiry? And do you think lots of other survivors, many will be nervous, many might even be terrified by this news, but do you think there will also be many who are excited and really looking forward for the opportunity to share their story and to make sure the people who knew, who failed them, not just the perpetrators who are behind it, but those who could have protected them, finally face some justice as well?
Yeah, I think you've put it absolutely bang on. I think the emotions are going to be very mixed at the minute, but it is a good day for us all in the sense of, we will be able to stand up and give that evidence, and we will be able to stand up and feel believed and feel like we are taken seriously, which is a problem that the authorities have had for a long time of not taking us seriously. I strongly believe that there'll be a lot of young girls and boys and men and women that are out there now jumping up and down, because I know I definitely am.
Well, Ellie and Ian, it's been a real pleasure as ever to speak to you both. Thank you so much. And I'm delighted that we can finally have a conversation about this issue in a positive light for both of you. This is an opportunity for so many survivors and campaigners and their families, Ian, to get their moment for some justice. So Ellie Reynolds and Ian Piper, thank you so much, both of you, for speaking to me on GB News this evening. Well, you've heard from them both there, Alex. Ellie and Ian, two really remarkable people. I think Ian's one of the bravest dads I've ever met in my life. There are plenty of fathers and mothers who are overlooked in this case, I think. But what Ian's done is he's come out forward in public, just like his daughter, very bravely waiving her right to anonymity, to sharing their experiences. And I think all too often people forget that there are families involved here. Just give me one more thing to say. I know you guys are itching to speak, but what was really, I think, appalling about this issue when it broke is that lots of commentators, I think they saw the story and they thought, these girls and boys are just from broken families, their parents don't care for them, they're getting themselves in trouble. It's not true. It's not true at all. I know plenty of dads who were arrested for trying to protect their daughters. Ian's a loving father who's done everything he can to protect her, but she was abused by vicious perpetrators, and the people who should have done more to protect her criminalised her instead.
Yeah, Charlie, this will be, watching those interviews there with those very brave people, a bittersweet moment, perhaps. Because, they finally are getting this national inquiry, which many of them have demanded for a very long time. But for others, it may be seen as too little too late. Of course, there are kids that may have lost their lives in this massive epidemic of that happened across the country. And there's probably many still that haven't actually spoken up and had their moment that many of these brave people have had. Do you feel there will now be a swelling of people come forward? And do you think that this inquiry will be able to cope with that swelling of people if it does happen?
I really hope it does. I really hope it does. And what motivates me so much in doing this work, and for everyone at the channel who's worked on these stories, is that every time we do one, 2 more people come forward and more, and it gathers momentum, and people see the bravery of other survivors and their families, and they think, I can do it too. And when they share their story and we work with them to get them some answers and put pressure on the authorities, it can change their lives, right? And what's really troubling about this story is that so much of the change that's happened has been through journalism. It's not been through the authorities putting their hands up and saying, we've made some mistakes here. They make recommendations and they're not acted upon, or the recommendations don't matter, Alex. One of the recommendations from the ICSA report is a minister for children. Now, my personal view is that won't make a difference at all for the grooming gang scandal. I got plenty more recommendations that I think would make a much bigger difference than that. But that's unfortunately all too often what the authorities come forward with. It's only when proper pressure is applied, when you expose crises and failures, that I think some action is taken. So I really do hope that with a judge-led inquiry, it won't just be the media doing this now, you know? Now it'll be judges and government powers that can't be avoided.
That would certainly be very, very welcome, Charlie. Of course, here on the Saturday 5, what we do is we have lots of big interviews throughout the day, and it's fantastic you're here as well, Charlie, tonight, because this is such an incredibly important story to the country. But what we do on this show is we have difficult debates. We talk about very, very difficult topics here. We do that over 3 hours, and our panel, of course, interview some big guests as well. But I'd like Charlie to open the panel up to ask questions to Charlie as well. Dr. Renee, would you like to ask Charlie something?
Charlie, as you and I know, there are girls that have been criminalised along the way for soliciting, for bringing other girls into these gangs, whilst obviously just going along with what they were told by their groomers. Do you think this will pave the way for those convictions to be squashed? There are mothers who can't go on school trips because they don't pass a police check.
That is one of the key things that needs to be actioned. I think it's a real travesty that we've known about this issue for well over a decade now in wider public consciousness. Now, really since the reporting in 2012 and the exposure from the J report in Rotherham in 2014, that issue that you've just described right there of parents growing up having been victims and criminalised themselves and then not being able to be free is a real disaster. There are also so many issues where mothers who have had children born from their abusers face a scenario where their child gets visitation rights for the father, the perpetrator of that horrific crime. So when you have that sort of basic level of indecency happening, where basic levels of respect aren't being followed, is it any wonder that we can't access and deal with these much bigger questions about ethnicity, about cultural issues, about cousin marriage, about kinship, about how we reckon with, let's be frank, a significant change in the demographics of this country that I think have contributed to this sort of abuse happening in many of the former mining or industrial towns in the north and in the West Midlands. So if you can't even get that right, then how can we expect the big questions to be dealt with as well? Absolutely.
Trey Lowe.
Yeah, I've just got a question. I mean, 2004 there was a documentary, on the Edge of the City, I believe, by Anna Hall. So it's been going for a long time. And Ellie just said it there about them being in care. Jane mentioned that no one of note has actually gone up to check on anyone in these towns. Do you think there's a real deep issue with a sector of society almost being invisible because of their class?
Here's an interesting thing about The Edge of the City, that documentary from 2004. I mean, we spoke about it earlier, Kyle, when we spoke about Unrest. Channel 4 made that film 2 decades ago, and it was delayed being broadcast by several months. It was pulled from the schedule on that very night it was meant to go out because the Chief Constable of West Yorkshire Police, various anti-racist organising groups and local politicians wrote to the broadcaster and said, you can't run that film because it will inflame community tensions. A few years earlier, in that part of the country, in West Yorkshire, in the Bradford district, there had been race riots, and there were race riots in Oldham in 2001 as well, I believe. So this was a period of significant tension, but it just goes to show that so often this country has prioritised community cohesion over dealing with safety for young girls, predominantly young girls. Boys as well. Boys have also been abused by grooming gangs. There are some upcoming trials on that as well. People have been charged on this. So this is a big issue that people need to wrap their head around, so that actually, if you risk protecting perpetrators in order to prevent community disorder, you're going to get more disorder in the long run. That monster will grow and people get angry because they know what's going on in their local areas, even if there isn't a documentary on it.
Do you think that there's a sort of a line to tread there? Because I know there was an issue, I think, of BNP leaking some of that documentary at the time. Do you think we not need some of those communities to be on side in order for justice to be done? Because they might know more, and we should actually count on those communities to literally give up these perpetrators.
Well, I'll go back to what I said before. When we did the polling, we do know that significant portions, the majority, that they already want to help.
Yeah.
And when these police officers say we shouldn't release this information because it will infuriate them, they are misrepresenting those communities. They are tarring all British minorities or British Pakistanis as being one bad news story away from a riot, which I think is far more offensive than the truth, right? And the truth is not for investigation, and I surely hope that this judge-led inquiry won't be held back by uncertainty about possibly leading to unrest. The real unrest, as I've always said, comes from not dealing with these issues head-on.
Charlie Peters, thank you so much for this incredible detail you've provided to us tonight. The audience want to thank you as well. So not just for this today, but of course throughout all the work that you've done on this issue. We'll be hearing from you again. So throughout the Saturday 5, Charlie Peters will be joining us on the show. But we've got a lot more to come tonight. Of course, big part of the Saturday 5 is very serious debates on the biggest topics. Everyone on this panel gets a chance to give their say on something that's really important throughout the week. So we've got, as Darren Jones got Labour and hot water, of course, and we've got Andrew Pearce joining us to talk about whether or not Angela Rayner's boyfriend is causing trouble. So I'm going to get so much going on. Angela Rayner's boyfriend's causing a little bit of trouble for Keir Starmer, perhaps, and it's Rachel Reeves' spending review gone completely nuts. You're with the Saturday 5. You're not going to want to go anywhere. See you after the break.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
You have a very nice accent, and I always thought but obviously I'm totally wrong. I've learned something already straight away.
I mean, we've interviewed together on countless occasions. I thought you would have picked up on my English accent.
Oh no, you're just changing it now. You're changing it a bit here.
Yeah, I'm just putting it on for you, mate.
Well, I'll tell you this, Chesney. I think it's amazing that we're talking about a tour next March for a man like you, and that shows you the extent to which you have to be organised to do these things. I thought, like, you're advertising this for this month or next month. Why the need to go so early?
Oh no, it's just to give people plenty of advance notice. You know, these days life comes up very fast, doesn't it? So I'm always touring, Eamon. I've actually got some headline shows coming up next week. I'm in Cardiff and Southampton, but we've just announced this headline tour for next year. So I thought I'd get it out there and let people know in advance. You know.
Good.
And Chesney, just looking at your Instagram now, I mean, you've got a sense of humour, haven't you? Because you've been putting videos out there saying people think I'm a one-hit wonder, but let me tell you, there'll be a lot more songs than just the one that you're most famous for.
Yes. Contrary to popular belief, there are other songs. So looking forward, I've got a new album out right now, Ellie, and it's all been very, very well received. I'm so honoured and grateful for that. And so, yeah, I'll be performing some of this new album out on the road soon. You guys should come.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back, everybody. What a Saturday 5 show this has been so far. That huge breaking news on Labour's Keir Starmer's U-turn on a national grooming gang inquiry. Nothing. I mean, I don't think I didn't see this coming. I don't know about you guys on the panel, but this caught me quite by surprise when we heard the news was going to break earlier on today. Lots of you, of course, getting in touch. Unfortunately, we're very good at reading out your comments on this show normally, but I haven't been collecting them as much because, of course, I've been engrossed in listening to those survivors' stories. But, of course, throughout the show, I'll be reading your comments out left, right and centre. But we want to get on because part of this show is to talk about lots of really important debates of the day, and we've done a lot on the grooming gang stuff, so we're going to take a little bit of a different angle here. And I'm going to kick us off on the Darren Jones lying scandal. Earlier this week, Darren Jones, a senior Labour cabinet minister, told the country on BBC Question Time that he believed that the people coming over on the boats, the illegal migrants coming over on the boats, were indeed mostly women, babies and young children. I believe we'll have a video to show you very quickly of that. But I'll tell you what, I don't know about you, I am sick to death of being lied to by senior politicians who have been voted in to represent this country, to represent you, and to tell you the truth of what's going on in Britain. For far too long have we been hearing fibs and lies coming from this Labour government, and Darren Jones should know better. And quite frankly, I don't know how you could even lie about something like this. Let's have a quick look at what he had to say.
And when you see that the majority of the people in these boats are children, babies and women who have been...
No, they're not.
I mean, you know, you've all seen it with your ears and eyes, haven't you? You've all seen the men coming over here. We all knew. I mean, even if Zia Youssef after that claims it was 90% of them, which wasn't quite accurate, but we all know it's not majority women, babies and children, don't we? We all know that. You can see it with your own eyes and ears. So there's only two plausible, statements that could have come out of Darren Jones there. One, he didn't know the facts, which I think would be rather shocking given that they are openly displayed on the government's website. And secondly, he was crafting a narrative. Now, I don't know about you, but he then responded on Twitter, by the way, claiming he was referring to a single boat that he had saw. Well, I remember listening to that clip. It was crystal clear. He said the majority of these boats coming over here are filled with women, babies and children. I don't know what it takes to want to gaslight the public twice in a row, but I'm sick to death of being gaslit by politicians. And if I had it my way, you'd be locked up for lying about it. And I tell you what, they wouldn't be lying much longer after that. Will?
Yeah, Alex, can I pick up on that term, he was creating a narrative? Because if there's a thread that ties together what you've just said and what we saw from Jones and what we've seen from the grooming gang scandal over recent decades, it is politicians trying to create a narrative in pursuit of an ideology instead of telling the facts as they see them.
Yeah.
And in this instance, it is an ideology of multiculturalism instead of actually saying this is the reality of what is happening in the country. And that is why I'm still concerned we won't hear the truth out of, say, a grooming gangs inquiry, because the same narrative will try and be spun.
You've absolutely nailed it there. That's what everyone's been saying here on your say, on gbnews.com/your say. Please get in touch with us. Kai, how can the public have faith in the Labour government to put forward this national inquiry into grooming gangs? Do it justice, tell the truth, when your cabinet ministers have lied through their teeth. And this second attempt at gaslighting is shameless, isn't it? No one's buying it, are they, Kai? Do you buy it? Do you believe he was talking about an isolated case?
You know, actually, no, I don't. You gave two options, didn't you, just there? You said either he didn't know, which is pretty shocking, or that he was trying to spin a narrative. I never assign to malice what can much more easily be ascribed to incompetence. I genuinely think that he's the Chief Secretary to the Treasury.
Kai.
He's just delivered... No, let me finish.
Go on.
He's just delivered the spending review where he's been setting out budgets for the next 5 years for every single department. I honestly can believe that detail or that narrative is still in his head, right? But the debate has moved on, hasn't it?
Right. Do you know what? I feel like I am a woman in an abusive relationship with my government. They are constantly telling me that what is before my eyes is not true, that I am going crazy, that I am the one in the wrong, that I am the right-wing one. That is what abusive partners do to women, and that is what they are doing to us, the people that they vote. They told us they'd spend the money from the VAT on private schools on 6,500 teachers. Last week, Bridget Phillipson slipped out that actually there weren't going to be 6,500 teachers. Yesterday, Keir said actually he's going to spend it on affordable homes. Then you get Darren Jones telling us this rubbish that we all know is not true. Rachel Reeves is telling us she's fixed the economy. We've got the highest borrowing we've ever had. I am being abused.
Yeah, Trey, I mean, I saw that clip that, of course, of BBC Question. I mean, shortly afterwards, Darren Jones posted that, because I saw this a little bit later than most people. I posted that tweet. Kai saying that he's going with the ignorance, so he believes he's completely ignorant to the facts. Well, he goes on to clarify the facts, doesn't he? He says in his tweet, of course, it's not all majority men and women, but when you actually listen to the detail of what he said in his BBC Question Time clip and the way he's framed his response, it's quite obvious he was caught in a lie. Do you think so?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's indefensible. And I think there seems to be a reason why, because I think they're trying not to inflame stuff, but I think by actually not stating the obvious, it's making things worse. And you've seen it at the grooming gang. Why not just state the obvious and maybe say we haven't got control over it? It's crazy, because I actually do understand why they're trying to do that, because they don't want to stoke the flames. But you're right, it's actually making people more inflamed because they're not telling the truth. Why not just say the truth? We've lost control. There are people coming over that are clearly just economic migrants. Most of them are men, and that's the truth.
And can I just add very quickly, I think they're also stuck in an old world where media wasn't reporting on this stuff.
Yeah.
There wasn't the footage of the boats coming through to the United Kingdom. So you couldn't see that the boats are made up primarily of men.
Yeah.
It's because of reporting from GBNews and people like Patrick Christie's that we now have the footage and you can make your own minds up.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys at home, but I'm just really fed up with it all. I don't care. I know this country's in crisis, but I just want to hear the reality. I just want to know how bad it actually is. I don't want to be gaslit and lied to. We need to be able to deal with these issues sensibly. Anyway, next up, Kai, what have you got for us today?
Well, in a bit of a change of tune, I'm going to be talking about how Angela Rayner's house building pledge is historical, and it will make or break her political career. Now, this week we had the first multi-year spending review since 2021. This is where the government sets out its budgets for all departments across the government, and it usually involves quite a few tussles between the Treasury and prominent ministers. Now, the three ministers who are holding out for a good deal in the last few weeks were Yvette Cooper in the Home Secretary, Ed Miliband in the Net Zero and Energy Security Department, and indeed Angela Rayner. And who's the biggest winner? It's Red Ange. Now, she was holding out. You know, she's holding the can for a central proposal by this Labour government. I'd argue the most important policy decision by this Labour government. The scale of the ambition to build 1.5 million new homes is undoubtedly enormous. To add to that, now the spending review has given Angela Rayner a massive firepower of £39 billion in the next 10 years. Now, pragmatically, it's going to be difficult for her to do this. Politically, it will make or break her career. Now, I'll be interested to see what happens. I'm interested to see what you all think. But I think this pledge is what the legacy of this Labour government will be judged on.
I don't think they're going to deliver this. This is absolute rubbish, isn't it? We know that they can't. Even Angela Rayner almost quit because she couldn't. She knew she couldn't fulfil this pledge.
But also, why are we paying £39 billion worth of taxpayers' money to house builders, private companies, to deliver affordable homes? We should be creating an environment of growth where they want to build affordable homes.
Sure, Will?
No, I can't add to what Renee's said there. The government doesn't build homes, it's the private sector that does it, but they don't understand how the private sector works.
Yeah, Trey?
Yeah, I totally agree with these guys. I mean, God, the private sector should be building these homes. 1.5 million homes. It's unlikely they'll even do 10% of that.
But that would work. That would all be well and good if we weren't in the housing crisis that we're in at the minute. Private housing developers have not delivered for the country. You look, in 2000, 59% of 25 to 34-year-olds owned their homes. Now it's 39%. That is decreasing.
That's because of the environment right to build homes.
And that's what they're doing.
Not with our money.
Legislating on planning laws, really important. Making it easier to decide on the quality of new homes. They are doing that, but there needs to be some investment.
Yeah, let's wait and see. Of course, Andrew Pearce is going to be joining us. Stalwart journalist and GB News presenter Andrew Pearce is going to be coming to give us a very, very interesting story about Angela Rini. So you're not going to want to miss that one. Still to come tonight, Dr. Renee, what have you got for us after the break?
I'm going to talk about two-tier NHS. If you're rich, don't use the NHS.
Well, there you go. It's going to be a good one. We'll see you very shortly.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Some big thunderstorms likely over northern Spain and southern France during this weekend. It's still pretty hot across much of Italy. Plenty of fine weather across the Greek islands. Not too hot here as the breeze is coming down from the north and pleasant, with temperatures mostly in the 20s. Fine weather too across much of Croatia. The heat's continuing in Italy, and the heat and humidity sparking some thunderstorms over the Pyrenees and extending up into southern parts of France. Chance of a heavy shower in Rome by Tuesday, but still pretty hot here.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. After a thundery start to the weekend, the second half offers something a little bit calmer for us all. There is still quite a damp, dreary evening to come, particularly for areas of Scotland. Some areas of rain still persisting, but generally come midnight they will be turning lighter and patchier in nature. Elsewhere there will be some clear spells as well, a touch of hill and coastal fog in places, but it's not going to be too chilly by any means. Temperatures comfortably in double-digit figures for many of us as we start off Sunday morning. Some of that rain still will be lingering across the Northern Isles first thing tomorrow morning, and we are also going to see another area of rain just slip its way into the northwest of Scotland, particularly for the Outer Hebrides and later on into the Highlands, parts of Argyll and Bute, that will also arrive into Northern Ireland later on in the morning. So a little damp here, but certainly the rain will be lighter and less intense than what we've seen around today. Some sunny spells developing across England and Wales, but there will be a scattering of showers wanting to pop up across central regions, and those will slowly push their way towards the southeast as we head into the afternoon. So can't rule out the odd shower here, but generally a nice slice of sunshine developing for areas in between. And with lighter winds as well tomorrow, it will be feeling relatively pleasant where you do see that sunshine. Highs a little down compared to the temperatures we've seen today, but still a very comfortable 22 to 24 degrees Celsius. Generally around high teens for Scotland and Northern Ireland. As we head into the new week, we're watching as this area of high pressure wants to build its way in from the south. Slow progress though, so it's still allowing these weather fronts to just skirt across the far north, and so there will be some further outbreaks of mainly light rain again for areas of Scotland, and then a bit of a brisk breeze here. But for the rest of the UK, with that high pressure beginning to influence us, there will be a good amount of sunny spells arriving once again, and temperatures not faring too badly. It's the sunshine that will become increasingly lengthy as we head into the rest of this week, and temperatures continuing to climb mid to high 20s for some of us. Bye-bye.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back to a very, very special episode of the Saturday 5. We're loving your comments tonight, of course. Lots of comments about that massive U-turn on a national grooming gang inquiry. Lots of you writing in about that last debate we had there too. I'll just read some comments out quickly. If you want to write into us, by gbnews.com/yoursay. Alan Wilkes says, great to hear about a national inquiry into grooming gangs, but what will the remit be and what shackles will be applied. I guess we're going to hear a lot more, but it is a statutory inquiry, so it'll be judge-led. So I suspect they'll be able to compel witnesses and other things too. Charlie Peters is going to be back as well, by the way, at 7 p.m, so don't forget more questions than I'll see if I can get some of them to you. We've got lots more to come on the show, but now it's time for our next debate, and I believe Dr. Renee is going to take it from here.
I'm going to give it a go. OK, so two-tier justice, two-tier equality, two-tier housing policies. We're seeing it all, and now it's two-tier NHS treatment, and it's discriminating against children. That's right, children. This week, several examples came to light of children who were being denied NHS treatment because, wait for it, they went to a private school. One 8-year-old's mum was asked to fill out a form in hospital to say what school her child went to. She then received a letter that said, I'll read it to you, "We are unable to see this child as we do not provide a service to school-aged children who attend an independent school." This Ponzi scheme of envy that Labour are instigating is going to collapse the country. Parents who pay for private school places also fund a state school place that they don't use. People who use private healthcare also fund the NHS that they then don't use. This will be just the start of two-tier services being offered from the NHS. But the green-eyed Marxist monster that Labour is just can't help itself. If you do well for yourself, which in Labour's eyes is not receiving a benefit, to survive, you are a bad person, one that must be bled until you have no more blood. Hard work clearly equals greed in Labour's eyes. Half of this country work to support the other half, and the price for that is not gratitude or thanks, it's punishment. It's a Ponzi scheme, and all Ponzi schemes collapse. This one will collapse.
Renee, can I just understand, is this actually a policy or is this a rogue operator in the NHS?
No,
what's going on?
There's several of them, and it seems that services that are outsourced to companies that supply in can set their own rules for who they treat. And they say things like they'll treat children who live in the borough or attend a borough state school.
So you think this is quite clearly an ideological decision in that regard?
Interesting stuff. Kai, of course.
Yes,
what do you
I
make
mean,
of it?
honestly, Renee, give me a break. I mean, you talk a lot about a tax on success and people, giving back to their kids, but actually, success in the UK is not gained; it's inherited. And there was this discussion in this one example, a rogue example, saying that this case has triggered a class war. Well, a class war is when 20 out of 58 of our British Prime Ministers has gone to Eton. Class war is when 10% of Oxford offers go to 14 schools.
What's that got to do with denying a child medical
But class war is not Labour finally closing an unfair tax loophole that treated private schools as charities.
OK, I cannot let Kai get away with saying that wealth is inherited. I grew up in a single-parent family in the East End of London, and I went to the worst school in London. I left school without a penny in my bank account. Everything I have today is hard work.
But you're the exception.
OK,
not the rule in
said,
the UK.
Well said, Dr. Renee. Unfortunately, we have to move on. We have another big debate ready to go, though. Willie Kingston, what have you got for us?
Yeah, just the small matter of peace in the Middle East, Alex. On Thursday, Israel launched what I believe to be the most important military operation in modern history. They have attempted to systematically dismantle Iran's nuclear regime, targeting scientists, military brass, as well as several nuclear sites. For decades now, we have heard from Western leaders who have said that it is intolerable for Iran to get the bomb, and for decades now they have done nothing. So the response needs to be a thank you. It needs to be a thank you from the West, who did not have the guts to do what Israel did on Thursday and will continue to do, because for what Israel has done, has attempted to ensure both their safety and the safety of a Western world against a rogue theocratic regime that can not have nuclear weapons under any circumstances.
Yeah, I completely concur. And with family, I've got family from Iran and family still over there. They want this repressive regime to be completely dismantled and over with as soon as possible. I know they're desperate for it to end. Trey, you're a bit of an everyman on the panel here, which I always love to hear your thoughts. What do you make of the escalation?
Do you know what? It's a shame because, I mean, there were negotiations going on at this very, very moment, and it's a shame we didn't actually give that a chance to go somewhere. I mean, Trump, no less, is there negotiating. And it's such a shame because my concern is these wars start, everyone gets sucked into it, and then before you know, the whole world is in trouble. We saw what happened with the vacuum in Iraq and Syria. It led to the growth of ISIS, then you had refugees and the rest of it. And it's like, why don't we give peace a chance nowadays? It's such a shame.
Negotiations for 20 years, Trey. What was going to be different in the next couple of weeks?
Because they were actually talking, and they were actually talking with Trump, and Trump is someone that actually gets tries to get stuff done.
Trump was informed last Friday that Israel were going to do this. He knew. If he didn't want it to happen because he really believed that the negotiations were going to work, it would not have happened.
Kai, Prime Minister looks like he's got a bit of egg on his face now, doesn't he? The other day he was out, putting sanctions on Israeli ministers. Now he's having to send jets in to help Israel. Hey, what's going on?
I think you can hold both ideas in your head at the same time, right? The crimes that Israel has been committing through its blockade in Gaza, not by how they've been killing people, that is for a tribunal much further in the future. But the crimes that Israeli prime ministers, former Israeli prime ministers, have said Israel's committing, you can believe that and act against that as an ally of Israel, but also accept, and I think lots of leftists will have egg on their face, actually, that Iran is the real enemy here, and Israel has done us a service here.
Iran is the real enemy.
Labour's pulling themselves apart on this, Will, aren't they? Because, frankly, I think the 1 minute they're like, oh, we should back Israel, the next minute, oh, we should sanction them, or maybe we should even go as far as completely expelling all of them.
Quietly, all of those countries around, Saudi Arabia, they're going, thank goodness someone is tackling Iran.
Very briefly from you, Will.
Yeah, the mealy-mouthed pacifism from Starmer was grotesque, and John Swinney's comments were even worse. I would just love to have a leader in this country that actually had some guts.
OK, well, it's been a very lively Saturday 5 so far. Please stay tuned because Trey's going to be giving us his thoughts. Trey, what have you got for us?
So I'm going to be talking about Father's Day. So everyone knows that I'm a new father myself, and tomorrow is Father's Day, but let's be honest, it barely registers anymore. There's no fanfare, there's no flowers.
Exactly. We're going to be talking about that after the break.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
So this time last week, I was on this show and the video had just dropped of her twerking in the hospital suite when she was giving birth to Lily.
Should we remind ourselves of what that is before we get stuck into your analysis? Let's take a look. She gon' do that, baby mama. Drop. Oh, God, it's the song as well. It's so inane. Anyway, sorry, so what have you found out?
Well, this time last week, I was on this show going, I don't know what she was thinking, why has she done this? It couldn't be more of an own goal. But I think it was actually tactical, because what I've since discovered is that she's about to reveal that she's going to make a rosé wine, and she's going to drop, in the next day or two, she's going to reveal more products from her, her business, as ever. And apparently there's going to be a different kind of jam, maybe a strawberry jam. There might even be a lemon curd.
What happens to the first jam?
It was sold out almost instantly.
Oh, it's popular?
Yeah, it was really popular. It sold out instantly.
What sort of loser buys that? Sorry. You've got to be a real loser to buy her stuff.
But my point is that actually I think she went viral on purpose, and she knows exactly what she's doing. Because she's about, at the end of the month, she's about to relaunch her website with all these new products to sell.
So you think it was calculated? You think she's got a new wine coming out, a rosé?
Yeah, and actually her team have counted this video as a win, because I must be getting old, because I thought it was the worst video. But apparently the Gen Zers loved it. They totally got it. They bought into it. Apparently it was her most successful social media post ever. And all the Americans apparently love it.
Hate watching. I've seen it a bunch of times. That's because I was hate watching it.
I guess it's any publicity is good publicity.
But isn't it about the difference in culture between the US and this country? I mean, I watched that and it's a bit icky. And I think, weird. But in the US, that kind of thing goes down well, and her big market is the US.
Exactly that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. It's been a very special show tonight. Charlie Peters will be joining us again, of course, at the top of the hour, 8 o'clock. So if you want to hear more about that big U-turn coming from Keir Starmer on the National Grooming Gang inquiry, stay tuned. Just some of your comments very briefly here. Grumpy Grandad, a favourite of GB News. Israel had to act. If they didn't, America would have. Starmer should have backed up Israel, as Iran are a serious threat to the UK too, but he's too busy worrying about Gaza. Well, of course, we have sent in jets to support Israel. That is confirmed. So maybe he is acting, but doesn't want to be doing it too publicly because he'll upset his own party too much. Who knows? But of course, joining me, my great panel here, we've got another big debate coming up for you. I'm going to hand it over to superstar Trey Lowe. What have you got for us?
So, obviously, we've got stories this week, with it being Father's Day tomorrow, about the consequences of fatherlessness. So, let's be honest, it barely registers that there's no fanfare, no flowers about being a father. And in modern Britain, dad has become a punchline, if he's even around at all. And that's the real crisis, fatherlessness. It's no coincidence that crime, addiction, school exclusion and prison numbers are all disproportionately made up of boys who grow up without a father. When there's no father, there's no foundation, no guide. And still we keep hearing that men are the problem. But the real problem are absent fathers, weak men, wounded men and silent men. Because here's the truth. Good men are the solution. And great fathers, they're not optional. They're absolutely essential. So this Father's Day, let's really celebrate fathers, because the country doesn't just depend on Parliament. The country depends on us in our homes, and it depends on fathers. So here's to fathers, and happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there doing their absolute very best.
Oh, fantastic stuff. And we've got, some, of course, lots of people writing here. Someone, I can't quite get the name, I've just copied it, unfortunately. Apologies, I can't get your name. They said they just lost their father, missing them, thinking about them this Father's Day. But to go back to your conversation about this, because I think there's an interesting angle here, and I think we have to talk about it, and I don't think we do it justice, and I hope the panel don't mind me discussing this, which is the racial disparity of households that black African families, I believe from the statistics I have here, so someone will correct me online, and I don't want to send them as stature and as scripture, but black African families make up 43% of child loan households. What is it about the culture of that that's an issue, and how do we go about addressing it, Trey?
I think one of it is actually linked to poverty as well. Yeah, it's linked to, once you have poverty, you've got unstable homes. You've got homes potentially where fathers walk out. You've also got the link as well to benefits, where for some people it actually benefits them to not have a father in the home because it affects their benefits. There are lots of different reasons. It certainly is not the same in African households in Africa. There's certainly almost 90, maybe 100% in terms of actual marriage.
That's kind of part of my point.
Exactly, but there are issues for some minorities here in this country, and it just, I guess, nods to some of the challenges and difficulties for people of colour in this country.
Yeah, OK, Will.
No, Alex, you actually stole my argument, so all my points, no, but that's fine. But I'm glad we're thinking along the same lines. And I think the point that you're making is that this is an uncomfortable truth, that the problem is at least to some extent ethnocultural. And yet this is a theme which comes up again and again tonight. We are too often not having these difficult conversations, whether it be about immigration or grooming gangs or fatherlessness, because we want to be politically correct. And I really hope that we can actually start to have these...
But Will, do you actually care about this, or has it just become something else that you can use to beat people of minorities? That's what it sounds like a little bit. I've just said that in Africa that isn't the case. People tend to be married.
To come between the pair of you, I'm going to come in here because I agree to a degree that there is this disparity and it's cultural, but I also think that there are lots of socio-economic issues.
Exactly. Yes, I agree with that. Exactly,
so the poverty that you've already mentioned, we get black boys get caught up in gangs much more frequently, let's say in big towns, London, Manchester, and go to prison more often than their counterparts. They get heavier sentences.
Exactly.
If you're in prison, you can't be a present father.
Yep.
So we need to look at all of those things and work it out. But then what we need to do is we need to give some role models. Teachers, there aren't any male teachers now. They're all women. We need young black boys who do very well at school until they're 11.
Very well, exactly.
Until they're 11, and then they fall away. So we need male teachers at school.
May I be even more controversial here? And I'm going to get people are going to be really upset with me for suggesting this, but I think, again, in the spirit of having difficult conversations, how much role does the woman have to play? What if a man and a woman have consensual sex and they want to have a child, and the man doesn't want to have a child, but they happen to fall pregnant, and the woman wants to keep it, and the man says, it's not my problem, I didn't want to have a child. Is the man right to be able to have to be able to continue on as a single man after that?
Well, he could have used a condom, couldn't he?
I mean,
I'm just putting a difficult conversation out there. I'm just putting it out there. I'm not saying...
I'm bowing out at this stage.
Guilty conscience.
You coward.
If a man doesn't want to have a child, it is not just the woman's responsibility to stop that happening.
OK, good point.
Also, why don't we encourage women and men to be married, to stay together? Why don't we skew our tax system and our benefits?
Agreed.
Kai, I want you to give me a 5-second answer very quickly.
Clearly, the social fabric in the UK is broken, fatherlessness, massive issue, and I think it's ahistorical to say that it's about immigration. It predates that.
OK, well, look, don't go anywhere. Saturday 5 Extra is coming up next, and right at the top of the hour, we're going to go straight back to Charlie Peters to give you the latest developments on that national grooming gang inquiry. We'll see you very shortly after the break.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. After a thundery start to the weekend, the second half offers something a little bit calmer for us all. It is still quite a damp, dreary evening to come, particularly for areas of Scotland. Some areas of rain still persisting, but generally come midnight they will be turning lighter and patchier in nature. Elsewhere there will be some clear spells as well, a touch of hill and coastal fog in places, but it's not going to be too chilly by any means. Temperatures comfortably in double-digit figures for many of us as we start off Sunday morning. Some of that rain still will be lingering across the Northern Isles first thing tomorrow morning, and we are also going to see another area of rain just slip its way into the northwest of Scotland, particularly for the Outer Hebrides and later on into the Highlands, parts of Argyll and Bute, that will also arrive into Northern Ireland later on in the morning. So a little damp here, but certainly the rain will be lighter and less intense than what we've seen around today. Some sunny spells developing across England and Wales, but there will be a scattering of showers wanting to pop up across central regions, and those will slowly push their way towards the southeast as we head into the afternoon. So can't rule out the odd shower here, but generally a nice slice of sunshine developing for areas in between. And with lighter winds as well tomorrow, it will be feeling relatively pleasant where you do see that sunshine. Highs a little down compared to the temperatures we've seen today, but still a very comfortable 22 to 24 degrees Celsius. Generally around high teens for Scotland and Northern Ireland. As we head into the new week, we're watching as this area of high pressure wants to build its way in from the south. Slow progress though, so it's still allowing these weather fronts to just skirt across the far north, and so there will be some further outbreaks of mainly light rain again for areas of Scotland, and then a bit of a brisk breeze here. But for the rest of the UK, with that high pressure beginning to influence us, there will be a good amount of sunny spells arriving once again, and temperatures not faring too badly. It's the sunshine that will become increasingly lengthy as we head into the rest of this week, and temperatures continuing to climb mid to high 20s for some of us. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Saturday night, and this is the Saturday 5 Extra. Tonight on the show...
It's Liberation Day, and we want to thank Maggie.
Harry and Meghan's latest fallout.
Happy birthday to the home of free speech.
The incredible little girl on the honours list.
And, of course, Beavers are back.
And we've got Charlie Peters in the room with us. Charlie, what have you got?
Well, Sir Keir Starmer has announced a judge-led inquiry into the grooming gang scandal. We'll be speaking with the survivors, their families and the campaigners who've led the way to make this event happen.
Yes, this is the Saturday 5 Extra. Yep, good evening. It is 8 p.m. Of course, we've had that huge breaking news that the government has announced an independent inquiry will be held into the grooming gangs. Charlie Peters has the latest for us. Oh, we're going to hear from Charlie after the news.